Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, buckle up, put on a brave face. We consider some of the less than rosy possible realities this fall, and I'm getting deja vu as it relates to our quarterback. I'll explain next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And on today's episode, we'll actually get into what I think is a great follow-up to a previous conversation we had this week regarding hype or hoopla even. I want to get into an expectation conversation that could shift the other way. Unintentional rhyme master in the building today. We're talking about what would have to not show up in the fashion we expected. What would have to go wrong or not be what we anticipated if Texas Tech actually veered toward disappointing in 2025? Could it possibly happen? I want to get to some things on that list. Obviously, would love to hear from you out there in the YouTube comments or a text from the Matador Mobsters as far as what maybe is out there. You're thinking, I'm a little skeptical, and this could be the thing that actually takes our fall in a different direction. So we'll get to a couple of things you see there on the screen. I also want to get to with one of those subjects that I think will be mentioned, quarterback play, Behren Morton specifically. A little dose of deja vu I'm getting into this time of year. I'll explain in just a moment. But yeah, Chris, as we've been talking about the build up to 2025 and a lot of very, very sky high expectations for this team that's been on the receiving end of a massive talent infusion, there is that other reality that you and I have been talking about over the last couple of days. What would actually spin it in a not so enjoyable direction? And I think on either side of the ball, there are a couple of good choices we can get into here.
Yeah, like because you start talking about the outlook for this 25 season, and you've seen this team. Okay, are they the Big 12 favorites? Are they top 15 preseason? Are they gonna be, or are they they're not gonna be? Okay, and I just think it's important to note, okay, if they're not to achieve these goals, what would be the possible reasons why? And what's crazy is it depends on how you want to look at this, but you theoretically could be like last year and say, this is a matter of, like, you pick this team over this team. It could be the difference in like one game, like one result. I mean, if you beat TCU last year, you're playing in the, you beat Colorado last year, you're playing in Arlington, and then like all that ailed you and all the things that were wrong with you, you still were just that close. And so
instead you wind up watching two teams you beat,
which as Joey McGuire would tell you, was one of the most painful things of his professional career.
I mean, it's a razor thin margin.
Yes, and so this is ultimately comes down to, because you're going to play 9 conference games, and is 7-2 going to be good enough? Does it need to be 8-1? Do you have to go undefeated? I don't know. I'd be willing to bet you that 7-2, I bet you're in the thick of it, but you could be on the outside looking in if it wasn't the right 7 wins versus somebody else's right 7 wins. I mean, tiebreaker scenarios and all that stuff. Okay, so just laying that out there. But like, what would be the possible reasons why? We can rank these, or we can just toss these out, however you want to do it. And everybody, I think I would love to hear some feedback on kind of what your concern, or plural, would be. And do you have, this is the biggest one, I'm not as worried about this one, because I can go about 5 or 6 deep here.
I think it might have been revealing in what I put up on the screen on the right side, because I wasn't ranking. I was just thinking of a list of some possible options. I did mention new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, Behren Morton, offensive line, defensive line, chemistry issues. But I think maybe I gave up the ghost in what actually standing out to me personally with the name I listed first. For those just listening via podcast, Taj is the name. So there are guys that are here now, Chris, that we may get to talking about. Like, I don't know if they'll live up to this, but I may actually be a little biased towards the guy that's not even here that you got to replace. I don't know if it's a number one ranking exactly, but man, Taj Brooks factoring in heavily to my portion of this answer.
Okay, so let me just take that. I'll take the baton and run with it. One of my reasons would be, do you lack a bell cow on offense? Do you lack a playmaker? Do you lack this guy will get us over the hump? This guy will do something when something is desperately needed. And on the road, you're behind. You got to go do this. You got to go do that. Okay. And I would argue, as much as Taj Brooks gave you last year, Josh Kelly gave you a lot too. On third down, on fourth down in Ames, Iowa. I mean, there's a few guys here that really stepped up when it was desperately needed. And yes, you handed it to Taj. He iced games. He bailed you out. He kind of kept you afloat when things were kind of muddy. But Josh Kelly also, I mean, those 30 plus third down conversions, and just kind of that clutch component that he had, or just that ability to move the chains when you just desperately needed it, and you're trying to keep the defense off the field, whatever. I don't know who to tell you is that guy or guys this year. The candidates, I think Behren Morton is a candidate. I think Caleb Douglas is clearly a candidate. I think Reggie Virgil is a candidate. I think Terrence Carter is a candidate. I think your running backs are a candidate. Coy Aiken is a candidate. But are they all the same? Does anybody emerge as like a dude and like, hey man, everybody in the stadium knows where the ball's going? And because at some point, quantity is great, but in the game that we're trying to play, quality it reigns supreme on being able to be consistent and make the plays consistently. And you are our identity, kind of like Taj was last year. But I just don't want to not mention Josh Kelly, because I think it was clearly 1 and then 1B or 1 and 2 in that, and then everybody else. Plenty of plays made. I'm just talking about when the rubber hits the road, it's like, man, gotta have it, need it. What are we doing? And well, just call the old bread and butter play. And on third down, it was going to Josh Kelly. On some, first and second down, you're handing it or throwing it to Taj or whatever. I don't know if I know the answers to those yet. And I think until we know that, that's going to be a bit of a question. And that may not be until October 1st.
There's no way to answer it until we actually see the first line, right? And maybe I should have included Josh Kelly's name on this list too, because when you're talking about bell cow, I'm thinking, wait, you do actually kind of have two of those, because you had your clutch third down, fourth down kind of component. And as you described perfectly, when things were a bit muddy, you had Taj Brooks and other aspects to kind of help you weather that storm. So yeah, you're trying to double dip as far as the replacement, I guess, offensively. And we might as well just stick with that side of the ball and spin it into a position and a guy that you mentioned, which is another one that's going to be really high on my list. And that's Behren Morton in your quarterback play. We've talked about, can he be a dude or is he a guy? Can he go out and take a game for you? Can he sustain this kind of drive and these kinds of moments that either does what is called as far as sustaining a drive to maybe close out a game where you don't necessarily have to have another point, but you really need to keep the ball in your hands? Or there's the situation where you do got to go get a touchdown. We do have to go get in field goal position, whatever it might be. There have been some glimpses, Chris, but I feel like there's always been kind of a protective layer somewhere from someone where Behren hasn't had to be that frontline dude, and it's like him or it's bust. But maybe we find ourselves in that position this year. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think you don't have to have some sort of first-round draft pick to go win a league or even a national championship. I mean, you're talking about Will Howard and Riley Leonard playing for a national championship. They were both drafted late in the draft this past weekend. Sam Levitt and Rocco Becht played for the league title this year, and your guy, whether you want to say it doesn't work like that, well, you had wins over them, or Behren had head-to-head wins over them. I know they're not on the field at the same time. So you don't need like an otherworldly quarterback. But what I would say is that at some point, and we've said this, at some point, he will have to be a reason why you win a game. He will have to be or reasons why you win a game or games. That's just how it works when you're trying to. Now, in his defense, and I think too many people weren't paying attention that are talking about these quarterbacks, and I'm not going to try to get ahead of myself because I want to spend more time on this in another episode. But you know what Behren did have to deal with? That for the life of me, if you're going to talk about this stuff, talk about it, from a standpoint of knowledge and know what you're talking about. He dealt with one of the worst offensive lines in the Big 12. It just was. I'm sorry. It was extremely average to below average. There is a reason why Cody Campbell said, "I will." And it wasn't about portal class. It was specific to the offensive line. And they felt like they upgraded it massively. Beren's running around dealing with all that and not having time and getting hammered and hit and all this stuff. Also Behren is dealing with it. Nobody talks about was a terrible defense. Terrible. And go look at the national rankings from last year. Pass defense, total defense, whatever. You were giving up 30-plus points a game, or I can go back and look up the rankings to be specific, but that's also what the quarterback is trying to shoulder. Speaking of, was his shoulder completely healthy?
First, today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it can be easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. You're going to love the all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money today. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com and our code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year.
That's also what the quarterback is trying to shoulder. Speaking of, was his shoulder completely healthy? I would say, whether elective or not, there was something that his camp felt that needed to be fixed, and they did it. And so you have all that, and he still had as good of, if not better, numbers than some of these guys that everybody's talking about. Okay, but yes, that if he can't be a guy, if he can't. Because what you ultimately want him to do, I don't need him to be a dude. I didn't need him to be a winner. That's what I need. You don't have to go win a bunch of statistical categories. Just win the win column category. That's all I'm worried about. Yeah. And so when it comes down to it, because we've said this, if your defense is as good as we think it might be, he may not have to do that, and it may be. The third down when he throws it out of bounds, that is the best play that he makes. Yeah. Just throw it in the stands. Like let the punter come out here. Let Lee Hunter and Romello Height and David Bailey get after this dude on the other side again. Those are some of the dynamics. I'm not saying that he needs to be a game manager. It's about winning plays. It's about making the right play and being mature and understanding. You may not have to. He's got a lot better numbers than Sam Levitt does. Sam Levitt's thought to be a first-round draft pick, but Sam Levitt was a winner, and he did win a league title, and so he's thought of in a different category. Plus, he's 6'5" and all the stuff. He's got a little more running. Yeah, he's a little more running component than Behren did. But you get what I'm saying.
Oh, sure.
So that is absolutely belongs on the list of concerns, and you can. It's just QB play in general. It doesn't really matter if it's Behren or Hammond or Griffiths or whatever. It's like that position is going to have to help you win a game or games if you want to go where you want to go.
Always makes me laugh considering professional profiles or scouting reports when they talk about QBs in the context of I want this guy because he's a winner. There are 20, 30 other guys involved, Tim
True.
Tebow, prolific winner. He's going to be great in the NFL. Just as an example, how does that work out? I always have sort of a suspicious look towards that being a characteristic or trait, depending upon what program they come from. If they're leading the Delaware Blue Hens to prominence, I don't know, maybe there's something to it. But if it's at Oklahoma or Alabama, it probably had a little assistance. I want to circle back to Behren before we're out of here, Chris, because I'm getting a little deja vu this time of year, looking back to 2024. I'll explain in just a minute. But a couple other things that could be on the list out there if you were to spin off into the land of a disappointing recipe for 2025. We mentioned the coordinators. You got big changes on both sides of the ball. You got massive roster overhaul and 2 new guys to lead that charge. Could it just be too much to bite off in one off season and get right into a conference title hunt? I think absolutely this is a warranted question to have on the list.
New schemes, new coordinators. I completely agree with you. This is on my very short list of possibilities of it's a lot to overcome. I think what you've heard from the way that like Coach Wood and Coach Leftwich have talked is I think they've tried to, because it's always players over plays. Don't ever get that twisted. And it just is. I think they have, and I hate using the word simple, but I think they've really tried to be smart with how much they've thrown at these guys, because you can run a 4-3 and not blitz ever, and you can dominate another team if you're good enough up front. And if you can get pressure with a front 4 and never have to blitz, and you've got a bunch of 6'3" aliens on the back end that are covering people, you're going to be just fine. I don't care what scheme you're throwing out there. And I think that that's what Coach Wood has largely done. They're not trying to be super exotic, because guess what? They may not need to be. But it is a point worth making. I think that Coach Leftwich even said, we've only got about 60% of our stuff in. This was at the tail end of spring. We've only got 60% of our stuff in. But here, because I'm going to tie this next possible list into like the offensive coordinator scheme scenario if it's a problem. If your offensive line is good and nothing else is, you really have a hard time being a bad football team.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of things with a good offensive line. You don't have to be great, but if you are good, it's amazing how much better everything else can be or is, even if it isn't, if that makes sense. You don't have to have a bunch of 4-2 dudes running past everybody or an NFL quarterback back there if your offensive line is good. Now, when you mix in some playmakers and you do some different things and a really good quarterback in Behren Morton that's got a bunch of starts under his belt and is finally healthy, I would say if your offensive line is good, because that's the other thing. I mean, what if it's not? What if it isn't? And now you don't have Taj, you don't have Josh Kelly. We're trying to figure this out. That's, what if they guessed wrong on Howard Sampson and Jadis and some of these guys? What if it's not better? I find it very hard to believe that it won't be, because that bar is low. And I'm not trying to get personal with last year's group. I mean, but you saw what I saw. It just is rough. And
we hadn't had a good one in a decade and a half. I don't know. There's been some like intermittent good individual pieces, but the last group that I really thought was cooking, I don't even know if I could give you a year offhand.
And yet you still managed to have a top 10 offense because of Zach Kitley and because of Taj Brooks and all that. I mean, top 10 in total in yards per game and points scored per game and all that stuff. And I what needed to be the best was arguably the worst group or worst position group. Big time tight ends, big time receivers, stud running back, a really good quarterback, all that stuff. And yet the offensive line was just the part that was piecemeal together and all that stuff. So, but yes, new schemes, I think that's worth pointing out. And I'd be willing to bet you that there's just going to be some time that it takes when the season starts before you really get, because they'll add bells and whistles as they go, and they'll be schemed against and they'll have to adjust accordingly. But players over plays. And I mean, and again, if those tackles are better and your offensive line is better, it'll make up for some of that timing. Plus, you're going to get a bit of I don't want to, a very, very manageable non-conference schedule where you don't ever leave town, and you're going to play two of the worst, at least last year, FCS teams that there was, or Group of Five, however we want to phrase that,
Yeah.
Arkansas Pine Bluff and Kent State and all that stuff. And Oregon State will be very, that'll be tricky. But anyway, so. But and you don't want to. I got one more, but we'll keep going with what I didn't want to interrupt.
No, I was just saying, God, I hope Oregon State's not tricky. You're a non-conference should be the cupcake of cupcakes. It's hard to speak. I'm hesitant to say anything about the Big 12 schedule because last year we're like, oh man, look, we're glad to dodge these guys, and we get these guys, and then the guys we got wound up being the guys you wanted to dodge, with the guys you didn't get. Fact check that; it all makes sense. Building a team without the trenches is like building a house on sand. It may look good for a little while, maybe 7-5, 8-4 going to bowl games, but you're not stacking any trophies in there, and that sucker's going to be swept away with the first strong wind. I didn't even put defensive line on the list because I can't fathom that they're not going to live up to what we think is going to be really good. The chemistry portion of the offensive line angle is why I kind of put them more so in that category, Chris. You got to come together, really work as a group. I know the defensive front does to an extent as well, but it's also like, hey, you kill the guy in front of you, then kill the quarterback behind that guy. And I think those guys are going to grasp that pretty much day one. So I feel a little bit differently about that. But the chemistry angle definitely, for whatever side or the team at large, I think would probably also be a popular answer. Can you bring it all together and do it cohesively?
Yeah, because here's an unwritten intangible that you're talking about here. And the way I would discuss like the chemistry part of it is, okay, we think we love each other. We think we are going to be good. We think that success is around the corner. Football is hard, and this league you're in is tricky, as you just stated. I mean, I could sit here and tell you that I know going to Manhattan is going to be tough. I know going to Tempe, Arizona is going to be tough. I know BYU coming here is going to be tough. People may assume when Oklahoma State comes here, you're going to roll. Well, you haven't ever really rolled over those guys. Even when they were terrible last year, you still had a hard time outlasting them, but you did. Going to Utah, yes, was last year an exception, or is the previous 6 to 8 years more of what you get this year with Kyle Whittingham and the Utah? Okay, so all that. At some point, adversity will hit. And whether it's a loss, whether it's losses, whether it is a bad call, that's when you find out where you're at with all these guys. Do they go, well, we're not going undefeated, or this sucks, or do they fight for each other? Do they still locked in, or are a lot of these hired guns, or a lot of these guys go, okay, I'm worried about my professional career now. I'm not. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like yet. I don't know if we know in what form or fashion it will come. Will it come early? Will it come late? Will it come in between? Will it never come? I don't know, but that's when you'll find out about the answer to your question. Chemistry and culture, and that'll be Joey's toughest time is trying to keep those guys locked in, and because heaven forbid you lose a couple in a row, heaven forbid you show up and just don't have it and you get beat. I mean, everybody's gonna freak, but rare in this sport does anybody roll through undefeated. I heard Ole Miss in a Texas Tech comparison recently, because Ole Miss really went all in on the portal last year. And while you were one game shy of playing for the Big 12 title, they were one game shy of making it to the playoff. They were one of those next teams that just didn't make the cut. They had some questionable losses to Florida and Kentucky. If they win one of those two games, they make it into the college football playoff. And it just shows you it's just very difficult. The other one that we haven't discussed, I'm just going to throw this out there, may be a big deal, may not be a deal at all. But you and I talked about this after the spring game. what if your kicker isn't as you'd hoped? What if you got a kicking problem?
Probably cost you a game or two.
It could.
Yeah.
And you were 1 of 6 in the spring game. And what if Upton Bellenfant is not Gino Garcia? Now, if Upton Bellenfant is anything like he was last year, I think you're going to be just fine. But like the quarterback, there is going to be a kick that he's going to need to make late in the third, in the fourth, whatever, that's going to send a game to overtime, win you a game, whatever. Can he make it? Because what did we just say at the very beginning of this show? This all could come down to one game here or there on whether you get to where you want to go or you fall short again. And he was 18 of 21 last year. He only missed one kick under 40 yards. And if you're going to give me that, I'll take it and run and take my chances. But I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility on what could keep you from getting to where you want to go.
Before we get out of here, I'm getting deja vu, given something I've seen this year, and similarly to what I saw last year. If you're not on social media, you may have missed this. First, today's episode brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and more as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. And with the latest technology for elevated playing, you're at the cutting edge of gaming all the time. With Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and auto low latency mode advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to compete. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. That's Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. To get started, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation. Before we get out of here, I'm getting deja vu, given something I've seen this year, and similarly to what I saw last year. If you're not on social media, you may have missed this. But I've recently seen a video of Behren Morton throwing a football. We got very excited over Behren Morton throwing a football in a video a year ago. There was all this talk of like Florida body scientist or something, and he's figured out this new maneuver. It's all awesome. It's going to be great. He missed spring again, had an elective procedure after the season. It wasn't all great. I actually saw this tweet from our very own Chris Level as well recently on X, who said, lots of discussions about Big 12 QBs during list season. And I want to circle back to that Big 12 context as it relates to Behren later this week, Chris. But Chris went on to say, so many good returners, but many are sleeping on Behren Morton. Sleep if you want. But number 2 is back, currently throwing and feels great, ... Here's the part that stood out to me. And he's finally healthy. I got to tell you, as far as skeptical eyes, have got the most skeptical eye as it relates to Behren Morton's health. I am waiting until I'm seeing, and I mean probably weeks or months into the season, kind of waiting until we're seeing. So what has you feeling that way, that we are actually looking at a QB that's finally healthy here?
Yeah, I choose to be glass half full here. I know Behren is walking around right now as you and I are talking. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He knows that people are doubting him. I do think this is a young man that couldn't get in the weight room at all last year because of what ailed him. And again, I think he was healthy enough to play, and he did play. And the only game that he started and didn't finish was the TCU game. But he played in 12 games and obviously didn't play in the bowl game. I just, they were nervous about running him because of his shoulder and just because of the year before and the like. But I think that you'll hear that Behren has been able to add some good weight. I think he feels good. I think that he wants to be much more involved in the run game, like himself. And I think that adds a different and a new dimension. And I'm just saying, and again, people can make their own decisions, and we'll all find out together. I think I'm almost offended by how he's talked about in the list of returners compared to the way some other guys are talked about. It pisses me off. I think he doesn't get the respect he deserves. I'm not saying he's an all Big 12 guy. It's not what I'm saying. But when you're going to sit here and list like 7 or 8 guys ahead of him, like, were you watching? Do you know what he dealt with? Do you know what wasn't blocking in front of him? Wasn't blocking in front of him?
Easy, big fella. Easy. Simmer.
Do we know that he's having to overcome just a rock bottom national defense? I mean, so anyway, and we'll talk about that. We can do a show on kind of laying it out there with a lot of these other guys, but
yeah, I do want to get back to that, man. Like comparing elsewhere in the Big 12 conference. So don't empty your bucket yet.
Yeah. So anyway, I just let him. And again, I get it. He didn't participate in the spring. That's another reason why you want to not list him amongst guys. We're in list season. The list doesn't really matter. It's what we do this time of year. I was triggered.
It's still real to me. Damn it! I celebrate list season.
I was triggered.
Fully. And that's really the question as it relates to, 2024. Some might be like, well, what are you skeptical of? He was out there. It's only the day in Fort Worth that came to an end early. It's not so much the availability, and we know he's a tough guy. There's no question about that. But it's always this question of what pages of the playbook are we not opening up because this can't be done for whatever reason, given an injury or a nagging link, whatever that might be. And I think that has been somewhat of a reality over the last couple of seasons. So wondering if 2025, maybe we'll see the whole book opened up. And by the way, as we've already touched on, you got a brand new book. You're opening up now.
I was about to say, I'm not even sure what that book, what all of it includes. Yeah.
And by the way, it was a figurative chip on the shoulder for a guy with shoulder issues. I felt like I should just point that out. There's no chip or anything. It's figurative. It's motivation. He's pissed off for greatness. Okay, just want to make sure that translated correctly. Chris, appreciate your time and perspectives as always, my man. We will circle back to a conversation regarding Behren Morton in the context of Big 12 QBs and maybe where he falls on an upcoming episode. So looking forward to that conversation. We'll have another go-around with a Matador Mob mailbag edition before we wrap up the week. Looking forward to it, and we'll see you then.
Keep hope alive, people. We're just trying to lay out some reasons. I choose not to believe any of them. Yeah.
In summation, this entire episode, cockamamie.
Yeah, that's right.
You did want to consider it, right?
Yeah, you bet. All right. Appreciate the time, everybody. Thank you, Cowan, and we'll talk to everybody next time.
Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Appreciate those everydayers for always being out there. And thanks to the Matador Mob as well. You can hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial. If you want to join that crew, that's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. A lot of these texts I just don't see coming. Conversating about the Pope selection process this week with a few Matador mobsters. The education continues always, Chris. I'm here to learn. That's a fun part of it. So become one of those if you'd like to teach us a thing or two. And you can shoot us a text.
Ghosts and the Pope. And
Paranormal, Gene Hackman movies.
We had eggs a couple of weeks ago. There's all kinds of shenanigans going on. Okay.
Conversation not limited.
Yeah,
all subjects for discussing. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not quite sure just yet. All right. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thank you all for being out there as always. And we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.